Okay, number 5. We've got a lot of reading in this problem and it seems pretty overwhelming, but we're going to break it down and make this as simple as possible. So let's take a look. We're looking at a survey of visitors at a national park was conducted to determine the preferred activity of each visitor to the park. Each visitor chose one activity and the survey was recorded in the table below. Based on this information, which prediction about the preferred activity for the next 200 visitors to the park is the most reasonable? So we're going to take information in the table and then compare it to 200 so we can kind of get a prediction of what's going to happen. This is a really real world skill. Businesses do this all the time to try to predict revenue going forward. So let's just break this down. And the first thing we want to do when we work on a problem like this is we want to find what was the original in the table. We have to find the total. If we don't know the total of what we start with, we can't compare it in a proportion or a percentage going forward. So let's take a look. Let's take these numbers right here and let's figure out what we started with in this table because they didn't give it to us in there. So all we have to do is simply take these numbers and add them up and get our total. So our original was 80 responses. When we add 28, 22, 14, and 16, we get 80 responses, so we know what we started with first. So we can take that 80 and then we can eventually move that and compare that to 200 if we wanted to change it to 800, 1,000, 100,000, a million. You can scale that using proportions. There's another example of why proportions are so useful and so important. So let's take this information that we have now and let's build a table. Building a table is proportionality, but it's kind of nice to be able to get it out there and see it. Obviously, this is a table we just have in the problem that's squares, but if you're working on this problem, you can just do a T-chart and write it on the side of your paper. But let's look at the original. We have our original of camping, hiking trails, water sports, and biking trails in 80. We just did that work. So now what we want to do is we want to compare that 80 to 200. So in order to figure that out, we need to figure out what did we do to 80 to create 200? Now we're not going to add it because we're looking at a proportional table. In proportions, we're working with multiplication and division because we're scaling it. Addition and subtraction doesn't work in this case, so we want to make sure we figure that out. So when we work that, there's 2.5 80s in 200. So you can take 80 times 2.5, or if you want to figure that out in a table, you can take 200 and divide it by 80, and you can figure out what your scale factor is right there. And that's important. You can use that for any type of things. We're dealing with proportionality. So we're looking at 2.5. So let's just figure out, and let's apply it to our table and fill out our table. So we got 2.5 28s is 70. 2.5 hiking trails, 22 plus 22 plus 11 is 55. 2.5 water sports is 35. And 2.5 biking trails is 40. And we can always check that when we add them up. Our prediction table should add up to 200 to make sure we do it right. And they're easy numbers, so it might be a good idea to check that out. So what we're looking at, we got to break down our answer choices, and we're going to go one at a time and slow down and make sure we get all this information. So our answer choice A says the number of visitors who prefer water sports will be 5 more than the number of visitors who prefer biking trails. We have that highlighted in our table. So we're looking at 5, the preferred water sports will be 5 more. Well, water sports is 5 less in this case. So that doesn't work. So we're going to put a big no on that one. It's the difference of 5, but we got to read it carefully to make sure we understand what's going on with that one. Let's go to B. The number of visitors who prefer hiking trails will be 8 more than the total number of visitors who prefer water sports. Hiking trails is 8 more. Well, if we look at this, hiking trails is actually 20 more than water sports. So that's not going to work either. All right, C. The number of visitors who prefer camping will be 15 times the number of visitors who prefer hiking trails. 15 more. Camping, 15 more. It looks like camping is more, but it says not 15 more, it says 15 times more. So you're taking that times 15, not adding 15. A little tricky in the reading, but that's not going to work either. So we're going to go to our final one. We probably know already if we've done our work right. A, B, and C aren't right, so D is probably going to be the case, but let's double check. The number of visitors who prefer camping will be 2 times the number of visitors who prefer water sports. 2 times. 2 35s is 70, so yes, that one works. Let's take a look at our table and all the work that we did. It looks like D will be our answer choice. Using